Okay, before starting the session, I'll give you a quick recap on the topic what we have discussed yesterday. So yesterday we discussed about data objects. So the data objects are used to hold the data in program as long as the program is active and running. Once the program execution is completed, all the memory of the data objects will be deleted. So what is the purpose? Like why we use these data objects? To hold the data for some calculations, right? For some analysis purpose, as long as the program execution is in progress. Once the program execution completed, all the data objects memory will be deleted. There are different data objects, depends on our requirement. We are going to use a specific data object. So variable is kind of data objects which we use to store the single value, a single value, single field value, right? For example, employee ID, only that value. We define variables using this syntax, and in new ABAP we have advanced syntax as well. You don't need to write this statement to define the variable. Before going to use the variable, what is prerequisite? That should be defined. What do you mean by defining? We need to create the memory. We need to create the memory. For that, what we need? What are the important aspect of?
Data objects.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We are creating memory for data objects. To create the memory, what are the important
Data.
inputs? What are the important inputs?
Data.
Data
Data.
type, data type, and length. Data type and length. What is the data type of this variable, and what is the length of this variable? So depends on that. A memory will be created. Okay. So when you are defining any data object, what you need to know, what is the type of it, what type of data it is, right? You have to provide that specific type. When you are defining the variable, you need to provide type of the data and length of the data. Depends on that, it will occupy some memory. Okay. So the value of the variable can be changed during program runtime. Constants. What is constant? Constant is also a single value which can define using constants keyword. The value of the constants cannot be changed during program runtime. Once you assigned a value to the constant, you should always use the same. Okay. For constants also, you need to have a type and a length along with value. You need to provide the value of the constant at the time of defining, right? And what about work area? Work area is used to store the or hold
Single
the
record.
single record. So what is the difference between record and field?
Record is a group of fields.
Group of fields. Record is a group of fields with some meaningful information, right? And if you take variable, it is a single field. Okay. So to define the work area, we use data statement, work area name. You can use any name relevant to the current scenario, and type and table name. We have to provide the table name. So whatever the fields available in the table, it will create. It will create work area will be created with reference to that table. Okay, and internal table. So internal table will also hold the data temporarily in the program runtime. How it is different from work area?
It stores multiple records.
Yeah, it holds more than one record, one or more record. Okay. So this is the syntax to define the internal table data, internal table name, type table of, you need to provide table reference, the reference table. Okay. So whatever the fields available in the table, the internal table will be created with reference to that table. Okay, clear? How can you populate? How can you populate data to the data objects? Either we can pass manually in the program. You guys have observed yesterday. We defined one data object and populated a value, right?
Yes,
Manually.
sir.
Like that,
Yeah.
you can pass the value, or you can read the data from database tables and populate the value to that corresponding data object. If you are reading a single field value, we can use a variable. If you are reading a record, a single record, only a single record from the database table, what is the data object we can use? If you are reading one single record from database table,
Work area.
yeah,
Constant.
we can keep the data in work area. Single record contains multiple fields, right? Constant, usually we don't select from database. We define it in the program level instead of using hard-coded values. Yesterday we have used one value, right? For example, Hyderabad. Instead of typing directly, instead of passing directly, we define this value as a constant and pass that constant value. Okay? And if you are selecting more than one record from database table, what we use?
Internal.
Internal table.
Internal table.
Internal table. There are different types of internal tables. We'll see that little later after few classes, right? Standard internal table, sorted internal table, and hashed internal table. We'll see the differences after some time. So for now, we are going to use standard internal tables. So this is the syntax to define the data objects, depends on the data object type. But in the new ABAP, you don't need to use these declarations to define the data objects. We can use a concept called inline declarations. We'll see after few classes. For now, we are going to use this syntax. So the important keywords data is to define the data objects, to create some memory, to define. Without defining a data object, we cannot use the data object. Without, right? There should be a memory created before going to use it. What is clear statement? It is used to clear the data available in a data object. Okay. There is one more. It will clear statement will clear the value. Clear statement will clear the value. Free. There is another statement called free. What the free statement will do? It will clear the memory as well. It will clear the memory as well. Clear statement will just clear the value, right? But what about free? It will clear the memory occupied by that data object. Is everyone clear? The difference between clear and free. Clear will only clear the value, but free will clear the value and remove the memory. Okay. Few important statements. Write statement. Write statement is used to display the output. Whatever the output you type in the write statement, it will display that in the output screen. Okay. And data statement is to define the data object, and select statement is used to select the data from database tables. Okay. Let's create a program. I will give you basic introduction to the programs and we'll work on database tables. So I'm using S4 HANA server, SAP S4 HANA 2022 server. Okay. What is the difference between ECC version and SAP S4 HANA version?
S4HANA is one database designed by SAP.
Not S4 HANA, HANA. HANA is a database which is designed by SAP. S4 HANA runs on HANA database. S4 HANA is a ERP system. Okay. So ECC is a
It,
data independent, sorry, database independent ERP which can run on any other databases, right? And the performance in S4 HANA, performance is optimized, performance is improved, right? When we compare it with the ECC. So the current version of S4 HANA is SAP 2022. Whatever the implementations, whatever the new projects, they are going to use SAP S4 HANA 2022 version only. Okay. Now we have a login screen here. We're going to enter the user ID and password, and we have a language option. What is the use of this language option?
it will display what the language you choose.
It will display the screen, data, everything in our specific desired language. Depends on the language input, all the screens will be displayed in that corresponding language to support multiple languages, right? And there is one field called client. Now we'll discuss about client. So what is a client? Client is a logical partition. Client is a logical partition of the SAP ERP system. So what do you mean by logical partition? Let me give you a example of the client. It's very important interview question as well. It's a logical partition of the SAP system. What do you mean by logical partition? The data which created in one client cannot be visible to other client. For example, there is a company, there is a big company, maybe yes, take that big companies like Tata. So there is a Tata company, Tata Group, where they have different companies, right? Within the Tata Group, where they have different companies, right? Which do different kind of business. Let's assume all of these are those different companies. Let's say there are three companies. So let's say Tata Group is running on SAP ERP. Now this company cars, let's say this is a Chroma company. Now they have implemented SAP ERP in their group. Now whatever the data, whatever the transactions that created daily in Tata cars, is it required for Tata Steel? Do they need to access all the
No.
data, whatever the transactions created by Tata Cars company?
No, no.
No. Both are different organizations with different kind of business. So whatever the data, whatever the transactions that are creating for Tata Cars is not necessary for Tata Steel. Whatever the transactions creating in Tata Steel may not required for Chroma. They should not be able to access whatever the data or transactions creating in the other two companies, right? So for that, we can assign a client. For example, 100. We assigned one client 100. We assign another client 101. For this, we assign, for example, some 200. From 100 to 900, you can assign the client numbers. Okay, you can choose any of the client number between this number range when the system is being configured. Now, so Tata Cars in sales department creating some sales orders to sell the cars. The data should be visible to only Tata Cars employees. Whoever the Tata Steel employees cannot access the data because SAP system is common for them. Whatever the system we implemented, that is common for all these three companies, right? But the data, whatever the companies are creating, should not be visible to the other company, right? Because database is same, application server is same, everything is same, right? All the three companies data will store in the same database, but the data created by Tata Car should be visible to only Tata Cars company. Whatever the data created by Tata Steel company should be visible to only Tata Steel company. For that reason, we assign client numbers. So once you log in with a specific client, for example, here we are using client number 800. If you log in with client number 800, whatever the data you are creating, that that data should visible to the only client number 800 logins. If you log in with a different client, if you log in with a different client, if you change the login here, if you change the client number here and login, then you should not be able to able to access the data which is created by client number 800. So that's why we are calling it as logical partition of the SAP system. Okay, because system is same, but you can separate the data created by one client from other client. You can restrict the access of the data created by one client to the other client, right? But there is some scenarios where they have they need to access some common data. They need to access some common data. For that reason, we can have two types of data we use in SAP system: client dependent and client independent. client dependent data and client independent data. So what is client dependent data? The data which you created in client number 100 will only accessible to client number 100.
100.
Other clients cannot access the data. That is called client dependent data. Whatever the data created in one client, all the other clients can also access the same data. We call that data as a client client independent data. Client independent data. Okay. Other clients cannot access the data created by this current client. What about client independent data?
Only can access,
Other clients
cannot access.
can access data. Client independent, right? It's not client dependent. Other clients can also access
access.
the data. It's like common data. It's like common data for all the clients, right? We call that data as a client independent data. There we don't specify client number. When we are creating the data, right? We don't specify the client number. You can observe this when we are working with database tables. Again, I'll explain again in detail when we are creating the database tables. But since we are working on clients, you can observe this. Whatever the data that is specific to a client, that is called client dependent data, right? The data which is common for all the clients, we call that as client independent data. It is very important interview question. Okay, we separate these two types of data, client independent data or client dependent data, by using client number. Okay, client number is a partition. Okay, clear?
Yes, sir.
So whenever your login is being created, right, your user ID and password, they'll provide access to the specific clients, whatever the clients required. But the database, application server, and everything is common for all the clients. Okay, let's create a simple program. What is the transaction code to create the programs?
S4
38.
SC38.
38.
SC38 is the transaction code to create the program. So what is the rule to create any custom programs?
ZRY.
Starts
The,
with
the
Z.
name should starts with Z or
Z.
Y. So you can use underscore to separate the name. Cannot use blank spaces or hyphens. Okay, create the program, provide the title of the program, demo program, type. What is the type we need to use? Executable program. There are different other types of programs, right? There are other types of programs as well, but for now please concentrate on executable programs which can take inputs and execute independently. Executable program can execute independently. It can accept the input and return the outputs. Select executable program and click on save. Rest of the options are optional. Click on save the program. Here what you need to provide, where you want to save the program, in which package. For now I am selecting local object. That means local package. Usually when we are working in the projects, we don't select this local object option. We provide a specific package name. We provide a specific package name. We'll see that little later. Click on local object. So a program is created. You can observe a statement which is automatically generated. That is report statement. Report statement with the program name, right? This is mandatory. This report statement is mandatory. And here we have a section, comment section generated. This is for log, like uh, we can maintain the functionality of the program, right? It's for documentation, kind of documentation purpose. These lines are not going to be executed because these are commented lines, commented using this asterisk symbol dot, right? Now let's create a sample program. Without defining anything, you can display something using write statement. What is the write statement? It is used to display the output. Where it will display the output? In the output screen. Okay, in the output screen it will display some output. For example, display something, test program. That's it. Check the syntax. No syntax errors. If there is any syntax errors, what will happen? Check the syntax now. I've removed t from right, so it will display the error when you do the syntax check.
Sir, we have to activate the program.
Once all the syntax checks are completed, when there is no errors, you can activate it. Okay. If there is any syntax error, it will display the error. You can auto correct it either, or you can manually correct the error. Okay. So my syntax check is completed, no errors found, and then activate the program. Since it is inactive, you cannot execute a inactive program. Execute. Now how to execute the program? Sorry, how to execute the program? Click on F8 or click on this symbol, execute program symbol, or you can also use F8. Execute. So this is the output. So this is the output. So you might ask like why we need to display this, right? In projects, there is no such requirements. Since we are beginners, since we are learners, so we are starting from the basic statements. How that statement will work? Please concentrate on that. Okay. So if you want to apply some color to the output, we have a color options for the right statement like this. Color. There are color codes between 1 to 7, I think. Color code 1 to 7. You can provide any number between 1 to 7. 1. I'm providing 1. Now check the statement. Activate the program again because we changed something. Now it is active and execute the program. So it is displaying in some color, some highlighted color. Let me try another color 2 and activate the program again. Whenever you do the change, just activate the program. It is displaying in some other color. I think it is gray color. Let me try 3. It is displaying in some other color. Like that you can use up to 7. Right? Here we are able to display a single value. If you want to display multiple values, multiple different values, for that we use a chain operator like this. Chain operator, we call this as chain operator. Okay, we use this chain operator to display the multiple inputs, and we separate the values using comma. Test program 2, and if you want to apply a different color, color 5. Activate the program again and execute it. Right, you can separate the, you can display the different values like this. What is the operator we need to use for that? Chain operator.
Yeah, correct.
If you want to mention multiple values, if you want to display multiple values. Okay, here did we define anything? Did we define any data objects? No, we are just displaying the hard coded values. Right, whatever the value you provide here, it will just display. Now we'll define some data objects and display the output. What is the statement to define the data objects?
Data.
Data IB.
Data is the statement. Data statement we use to define the data objects. Data will display some simple calculation. One simple calculation. Adding two numbers and display the output. Add two numbers and display the output. Okay. For that, what type of data objects we need? Tell me what are the suitable data
Integer.
types?
Integer or
Integer.
float.
Yeah, integer and packed decimal. But here we are I'm talking about the numbers, not any values, amount or quantity, right? We can just go by integer or number
Integer.
also we can use. LV underscore value 1 type type. What is the data type we can use? Integer I, type I.
So I.
And then one more data object for value 2, LV underscore value 2 type I. So in this data object we store one value, and in this data object we store one value, and we'll add both numbers and display the populate the output to the another data object. Data.
Sir, sir, can we use the chain operator for the data
Yeah.
keyword?
Yes. I'll show you that. I'll show you the difference, just because that I am defining all these three different data objects. As you said, we can use a chain operator without using separate data statements for all these. For we need three data objects. One is to store the value 1, one is to store the value 2, and the other one is to populate the output by adding value 1 and value 2. Right? Now what we need to do for that? First we need to populate some value. As you said, we can use chain operator. We don't need to use separate data statements. Use chain operator and use comma here. Right? You can define multiple data objects like this using one single data statement. For that, what is the operator you need to use? Chain operator. Okay. Now, how to populate the value 1 and value 2? LV underscore value 1 equal to some 10. Do we need single quotes for this? Do we need to pass the value in single quotes like this? Since it is not a character
No,
data,
sir.
since
No,
it is
sir.
not a character type data, this is not required. You can directly pass the value. If it is a character type data, you need to mention that value in single quotations. Then value 2 Okay, I'm passing value to here, and then result will be populated to which one? LV output. Output equal to how to do calculation like arithmetic operations. Simply LV underscore value 1 plus that's it. To add two numbers, you can do like this. You can use the operators. You can use the different operators. Plus, minus, multiplication operator, right? Division. You can simply pass the operator, corresponding operator here. And the output will be populated to this one. Now we need to display it, right? We just populated the value to the data object, but is it going to be displayed automatically in the output screen? No, right? We
No,
have to
sir.
use write statement to display the output. LV underscore output, right? Here we are not using any hard coded values. We are using the variable. We are using a variable and we are passing the variable in the write statement. Whatever the value available in this variable will be displayed. Okay. So what is the expected output?
30.
30.
That
Let's execute
30.
the program. So 30 is the expected output. You can also display like this. Activate it, execute. So you can also display like this. Okay. Just like that, you can use different operators. Let me use minus. I've changed it to minus operator. Then execute. It is displaying negative value, minus 10. Why it is displaying negative value? Value 1 is 10 and value 2 is 20. We are subtracting value 1 from value 2, right? Then the output is minus 10, right? 10 minus 20, minus 10, right? You can also use division. Execute. So it will display the output. Let me explain one important property of integer. Let me change the values here. 3 divided by sum 11. What is the expected output? 3 divided by 11. What is the expected? What is the output?
3 by 11.
0.27.
0.27. Maybe let me change the value. Mm,
6.
maybe 6. 6 divided by 11 equal to, I will take some big numbers. So, okay, observe this output. So here we have some decimal places, right? When we divide one value with the other value, we have some decimal places, right? For example, 10.50 like that. What the integer will do is, it will round the values. It won't display the decimal places, but it will round the values. For example, the value is 10.40. It will round the value to which one?
10.
10. Floor, it will take floor. If the value is this 10.60, then it will
11.
round to
11.
11.
11.
So that is the property of integer, right? It won't display the decimal places, but instead of that, it will round the values. But if you use it for any uh, price, quantity, is it going to calculate accurately the accurate amount? If you
No,
use
sir.
integer for any price or quantity, no, right? It will, since it is rounding, it will increase the value or decrease the value. It won't to take decimal places. In the uh, price is like decimal place also very important, right? When you are calculating any price or quantity. If it is a small
Yes,
company,
sir.
if it is a small company, maybe small numbers. But if you take any largest bank, even one paisa also matters, right?
Yes,
That
sir.
that one paisa change also, it will create crores of amount, right?
Yes, sir.
So that's why integer is not for amount, price, or these kind of calculations. For like to count something, we can use integer. Okay, let's try executing this. So it is rounding it to 2. But what is the actual result? 3 by 2.
1.5.
3 by 2 is 1.5. So after on or after 1.5, it will round to floor. Sorry, seal, right? 1.5. Round to the next integer. If it is less than 1.5, it will round to 1. Okay, clear? You can use different arithmetic operations. For multiplication, you can use star asterisk symbol. Okay, this will multiply the values and populate the output to this. Is everyone clear?
Yes, sir.
So like that depends on the data you are going to use the data type. For date types, let me create another program. How to open the new session? By keeping this
Slash
screen as it is.
Slash O.
Slash o, yes, slash o se38.
38.
Save. I'm saving it in the local object again. I'm defining data object to handle dates. LV underscore. What is the type for date? Type
Date
D.
D.
Type D. For example, this is start date, and I'll take one more variable for end date. Type D. Start date and end date. So I want to calculate the difference between start date and end date. I want to calculate the difference days between start date and end date. Or maybe I'll add 10 days. I'll add 10 days to the start date like this. I'll make it as output date. Now LV underscore output equal to LV underscore. There is no date, right? Initially, there is no date. Let me pass some date to it. LV underscore start date equal to, how to pass the date? Tell me how to pass the date.
Without slashes. Without slashes.
So we should use internal date format. What is the internal date format of SAP? This one. Year, month and
One day.
day without any separators. 2023, 16, sorry, not 16, 12, 26th, right? You should you should always follow the same format. When you are working with the dates, you should always follow the same format, right? This is the SAP's internal date format. Now what I am doing, I've already populated the value to the date. Now start date plus 10. What it will do? What we are doing here? We are adding 10 days. We are adding 10 days to this date. This will automatically calculate one. It will automatically provide one date after, which is after 10 days, right? Just display the output. So what is the expected output now?
06 01 2024.
Some date in 2024. Let's execute. 0501 2024. Close to that, right? Now if you observe here, it is displaying in a different format. Day, month and year. This is the output format. It is not displaying the separators. I know the reason. Like when we use the other concepts, data elements, it will automatically populate those separators. Okay, but usually we use those data objects, data elements. For now, we are just using this D. Okay, now it is automatically converting that date into output format: day, month, and year. Okay, is everyone clear? Like that, you can also add different operators. Like if you want to display previous date, 10 days before date, you can use minus 10. It will display previous date. Or you can also use, you can also calculate with any other date. Instead of days, you can also use another date here. One date minus other date. What are the days? Here you need to take a different data object for that. For example, let me take one data object lv underscore days type I integer. Now I'll make it plus lv underscore days equal to lv underscore output minus lv underscore start date. Now what is the expected output? I need to get the difference between days. How many days difference between the start date and this output date, right? That I am populating it to integer because it won't provide you the date. It will provide you the number. Okay, it will provide you the number. Here it is adding 10 days. It is adding 10 days. Here we are subtracting two dates, start date and end date. It will provide you the number of days difference, right? For that reason you have to take integer. Now execute. What is the difference days? 10 days, right? Because here we are adding 10 days to the start date, right? Depends on the requirement. You need to choose your data type. Okay. In SAP, there are few system variables. We call them as system variables. Starts with SY. Starts with SY. For example, if you need the current system date, SY hyphen DATUM. SY hyphen DATUM is the variable for current system date. Current system date. You don't need to enter manually. Just pass SY hyphen datum. It holds the current system date. Similarly, there is a separate system variable for time, for username, many things. Okay, execute it, right? Same output because it holds the current system date. Clear? Is everyone clear on this?
Yes, sir.
Let's create another program to use packed decimal C38. Save it in the local object, and I'm defining. So here I need to handle amount, values, quantities. So in this case, integer is not suitable because it will round off the values, right? LV value 1 type. What is the data type for packed decimal? P, right? Type P. And what is required for packed decimal? Decimal places, right? You need to mention length, type P, length, for example 5, and up to how many decimal places you want. Decimals, 3 decimals I want to see. Okay, this is how we need to define packed decimal. value 2, length same and decimal, 3 decimal places. And we'll define one more variable, lv underscore output type p length 10 decimals, some 2 decimals I want to take. How to do the calculation? Lv underscore value 1 equal to some 20.50. Then output equal to then using write statement display the output. The beginner's mistake most of you guys do is you do the you define the values data objects, you populate the values and you populate the output data object, but they might miss write statement and they don't know like why the output is not displaying, right? So to display the output, we need to execute write statement. Clear? Execute. So it will display values like this up to 2 decimal places, 51.10. If you take 3 decimal places, let me change it to 3 decimal places. So it can show up to 3 decimal places, right? Clear? That is about packed decimal. So character, integer, number, packed decimal, date, time. These are the most frequently used data types. Okay. So in the next session, here we are not taking any inputs from the user, right? Are we taking any inputs from the user when we are executing the program? We are just directly executing it. We are not accepting any inputs, right? What is the value 1, value 2? Every time, whenever you execute the program, the same values will be calculated, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
It won't take any new values as inputs because we are not using any input options. We are not using any input options. For that, we need to define input parameters. So in the next session, we are going through all those input parameters and different options in input parameters. But now I'll show you one thing. Here we have some values, right? We are passing the values here using variable name equal to value. There is one alternative for this. When you are defining the variable itself, you can add one more statement called value and pass the value. Value. What is this? A initial value, a default value. You are populating a default value using value statement. You are defining here and assigning some value using value statement. Okay, like this. You can pass the value when you are defining itself. Clear?
Sir, that means the variable is converted as constant.
No. Are we using constant keyword here? Are we using
No, sir,
are we
but
using
no,
yes?
sir, but value is defined only for the constant in the syntax box.
I didn't get you. Value is the different for
In the syntax form, value is assigned to the constant
No,
only.
no. What is the statement I am using? Am I using data statement or constant statement?
Data statement, sir.
Then it is a data object, not a constant. It's a variable. If I use constants like this, observe constants. For example, assign some name, any name, c underscore value type I value 4. This is the constant. This is the constant because I'm using constant keyword. Whatever the value assigned to this constant keyword cannot be changed. But this is a variable. I'm using data statement to define the variable. Observe here. You might see this. So this is the syntax for variable and this is the syntax for constant. So what is the additional option we have in variables? We can use value statement to add some default values. You can change it later. This value can be changed later. I'll change here. I'll change the value here. I'll pass a different value here. You can change this value. Check, activate. So it is displaying the output, a different output, right? But let me try to change the constant. What is the error? C cannot be modified. C like this value cannot be modified because what type of object it is? It is a constant.
Constant.
We cannot change it. Okay, but you can pass the value. For example, like this you can use. We can pass the value to another variable. You can copy or move this value from a constant value to other value. Okay, clear?
Yes, sir.
So the keyword is very important. What is the keyword you are using? Here it is optional. Value is optional. You can either pass it or not. Okay. If you want to pass any default value, you can use it. But here for constant, without this value, you cannot execute the program. Value is not specified because value is mandatory for the constants. Okay. Is everyone clear?
Yes,
So
sir.
for the next 3 sessions, we'll work on these basics only. Okay. Even few of you might know these basics, but as a beginner, just concentrate on these basics. This looks very simple, but these are very important if you want to learn advanced programs. These are the basics you need to practice. Okay. So in the next session, we'll continue with the input options, providing input options, and we'll also see advanced inline declarations. Instead of declaring the variables like this manually, maybe individual variables, we can use inline declarations. Without declaring, we can directly pass the values. We'll see that also in tomorrow's session. Okay. You can observe the difference between normal syntaxes and advanced ABAP syntaxes. Okay.